Chicago's O'Hare International Airport was alive with its usual chaos, rolling suitcases, departure calls over the loudspeakers, the steady hum of conversations in dozens of languages. For most travelers, it was just another busy weekday. But for Isabella Grant, it was the night her carefully controlled life finally cracked. She moved quickly through the crowded terminal, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Her tailored navy blue suit was immaculate, her long, dark hair pulled into a severe bun. To anyone passing by, she looked every bit the powerful CEO she had been trained to be, unshakable, untouchable. But on this night, power had abandoned her. "Please," Isabella's voice broke as she stumbled backward, clutching her shoulder. Her usually commanding tone had vanished, replaced by something raw and frightened. "Please don't hit me. I'm already hurt." The man towering over her was Richard Hale, her senior business partner and her stepbrother. His hand was raised as if he had every right to strike her again. His voice cut through the air like a whip. "You think you can just walk away, Isabella? You owe us. The company needs this merger. You will not ruin everything with your sudden rebellion." Dozens of travelers stopped, staring. Some gasped. A few lifted their phones, recording, eyes wide with morbid fascination. But no one stepped in. The crowd created a bubble around the confrontation, frozen, unwilling to interfere. And then, through the wall of silence, a man's voice spoke. "That's enough." The words weren't shouted, but they carried a calm weight that silenced even Richard's tirade. The speaker was a man in his late 30s, wearing jeans and a wrinkled button-down shirt. He was holding the hand of a small girl clutching a stuffed rabbit and a sketchbook. His suitcase sat forgotten at his feet. Michael Turner. Once a Marine medic, now just another face in the airport crowd. Widowed for 3 years, raising his daughter alone. He had tried to live quietly, avoiding conflict, focusing entirely on giving his daughter the childhood she deserved. But in that moment, seeing a woman cornered and broken in front of hundreds of passive onlookers, Michael knew he couldn't stay silent. He stepped between Isabella and Richard, his posture steady but not aggressive. His dark eyes locked on Richard's with unflinching resolve. "You need to back off," Richard sneered. "Who the hell are you?" "Doesn't matter," Michael said evenly. "What matters is that you leave her alone." For a tense moment, Richard looked like he might challenge him. But Michael had the bearing of someone who had seen combat, someone who wouldn't flinch. Richard lowered his hand, muttered something under his breath, and stormed off into the crowd. Isabella sank onto a bench, trembling. Her shoulder throbbed where Richard had grabbed her earlier. Her perfectly applied makeup was streaked with tears. She looked around at the dozens of people still watching, still recording, but not one had moved to help her. Except him. Michael crouched down in front of her. "Are you hurt anywhere else?" She shook her head, too shaken to answer. "Daddy, is she okay?" The small voice belonged to the girl clinging to his leg. "This lady had a bad day, Lily," Michael said gently. "Sometimes adults have bad days, too." Lily frowned with the serious concern only an 8-year-old could muster. She stepped closer to Isabella. "Do you want to see my drawings? They're happy pictures. They always make me feel better." Isabella blinked, stunned. No one had offered her comfort in years, at least not without an agenda. And now this little girl with big brown eyes and crayon-stained fingers was holding out her sketchbook like a treasure. "I'd love to see them," Isabella whispered. Lily climbed onto the bench beside her, flipping open the pages. Rainbows, sunflowers, stick figures holding hands under yellow suns. "This is my daddy," Lily said, pointing proudly at a brown-haired figure. "This is me. And this empty space," she tapped the page, "is for someone special we haven't met yet." The words hit Isabella like a soft but undeniable blow. Outside, rain hammered against the glass windows of the terminal. Isabella winced as she tried to stand, her injured shoulder stiff. Michael reached out instinctively, steadying her. "You don't look like you should be going anywhere tonight," he said. "Do you have someone to call?" Her throat tightened. The truth was, she had no one she trusted. The people she had spent her life surrounded by, board members, advisors, even family, were the ones who had cornered her in the first place. Michael studied her quietly, reading what she didn't say. "Look, I live a few blocks from here. It's not much, but it's dry and you can rest until you figure things out." Isabella hesitated. Every instinct screamed against trusting strangers, but then Lily slipped her small hand into hers. "Come with us," she said simply. That was how Isabella Grant, billionaire CEO, ended up in a cramped one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on the edge of Chicago. The place was modest but warm. The couch sagged in the middle but smelled faintly of lavender. The kitchen counters were cluttered with cereal boxes and school papers, and everywhere, taped to the refrigerator, pinned above the small desk stacked on shelves, were Lily's drawings. Bright splashes of color that filled the home with life. "You didn't have to help me," Isabella said quietly as Michael filled a kettle with water. "Yes, I did," he replied simply. "No one deserves to be treated like that." She watched him move around the small kitchen, calm and unhurried. He looked nothing like the ruthless executive she was used to. But there was a steadiness in him that made her feel safer than she had in years. Lily appeared from her room clutching a blanket. "You're cold, aren't you? Mommy made this. It helps." Isabella's throat closed. She accepted the blanket and wrapped it around herself, the yarn soft against her skin. That night, she lay on the worn couch listening to the rain against the window and realized something terrifying. For the first time in her adult life, she wasn't in control. And for the first time, she didn't mind. The first thing Isabella noticed was the smell. It wasn't the sterile tang of hotel disinfectant or the sharp polish of her penthouse floor. It was warm, like butter melting on toast, like coffee brewed too strong, like something real. She blinked awake on the sagging couch, the crocheted blanket still tucked around her shoulders. For a fleeting moment, she forgot where she was. Then the soft sound of laughter drifted from the kitchen, and it all came back. Michael, Lily, the man who had stepped between her and Richard at the airport, the little girl who had offered her drawings like gifts, strangers, yet the only people who had shown her kindness in years. She sat up slowly, her injured shoulder stiff, her hair falling loose from its bun. For once, she didn't care how she looked. She followed the sound of sizzling pans into the kitchen. Michael stood at the stove in an old Marine Corps t-shirt, flipping pancakes with practiced ease. Lily was beside him on a stool, carefully dropping blueberries onto each one. The two of them looked so natural together, a small team moving in rhythm. "You're awake," Michael said, glancing over his shoulder. His voice was calm, unassuming, as if having a billionaire CEO asleep on his couch was the most ordinary thing in the world. Lily grinned. "We made you pancakes. Daddy says pancakes fix everything." Isabella's lips parted, surprised by how much the simple declaration stirred something in her. No one had ever made her breakfast, not without a contract attached. "I don't usually eat breakfast," she admitted. "Then today's the day you start," Michael replied, sliding a pancake onto a plate and setting it on the table. She sat down, hesitant at first, then took a bite. The pancake was imperfectly shaped, slightly burnt at the edges, but it was the best thing she'd tasted in years. Lily leaned her elbows on the table. "Do you like it?" Isabella swallowed, her throat tight. "It's wonderful." The little girl beamed as if she'd won a medal. After breakfast, Lily tugged Isabella toward the small balcony. "Come see my garden." Isabella stepped out into the cool Chicago air. The balcony overlooked a busy street, cars honking below, but Lily didn't seem to notice. Against the railing sat mismatched pots filled with herbs, flowers, and even a few tomatoes struggling to ripen. "I planted these with Daddy," Lily explained proudly. "This one's mint, this one's basil, and this one," she pointed to a drooping sunflower, "is my favorite. I named her Sunny." Isabella crouched beside her, brushing her fingers lightly over the leaves. They weren't perfect. Some were wilted, others too dry. But the little balcony was alive, stubbornly green against the gray of the city. "It's beautiful," Isabella said honestly. Lily smiled, then tilted her head. "Do you have a garden?" The question caught her off guard. "No, I don't," Lily frowned in confusion. "Not even a little one?" "No," Isabella hesitated. "I don't really have time." The child's brow furrowed, as though she couldn't imagine a life without mint and sunflowers and tomatoes that refused to ripen. Isabella felt an unexpected pang of loss for something she'd never had. Later, when Lily disappeared into her room to draw, Isabella found herself sitting at the kitchen table again, cradling a cup of coffee. Michael was rinsing plates at the sink, sleeves rolled to his elbows. "You didn't have to let me stay," Isabella said quietly. Michael shrugged. "Didn't seem right to send you out into the storm. Besides," he glanced at her, then back at the dishes. "Lily liked you." "That's rare." "Rare?" "She's friendly, sure, but she doesn't get attached easily. She's been through a lot." There was a pause. Isabella had read about him once, years ago, in a human interest article buried in a local paper. Michael Turner, decorated Marine medic, lost his wife to cancer, raising his daughter alone. At the time, she had skimmed past it without thought. Now, sitting in his kitchen, it was no longer a distant headline. It was the man washing dishes beside her. "How do you do it?" she asked before she could stop herself. "Raising her, working, carrying all that." Michael set the plate down carefully. "One day at a time. Some days are harder than others. But Lily deserves someone who shows up. So, I show up." The simplicity of his answer left her speechless. That evening, as Lily sprawled on the living room floor with her crayons, Isabella helped tidy the kitchen. It felt strangely natural, stacking plates, wiping counters, hearing the sound of a child humming softly nearby. She caught sight of a photo pinned to the refrigerator. Michael, younger in uniform, smiling beside a woman with Lily's same eyes. The woman's hand rested on her rounded belly. Isabella's chest tightened. "Her name was Emily," Michael said quietly behind her. He didn't sound angry, just thoughtful. "She passed away when Lily was 5. "I'm sorry," Isabella said, her voice low. Michael nodded. "She was the kind of person who believed the world could always be better. Sometimes I think Lily got that from her." They stood in silence for a moment, the hum of the refrigerator filling the space. Isabella felt the weight of her own life pressing down, the sterile boardrooms, the endless contracts, the power plays and betrayals. For the first time, she wondered if she had been living at all, or merely surviving. That night, as Isabella tucked the blanket around herself on the couch again, Lily appeared with her sketchbook. She climbed onto the edge of the couch and flipped to a new page. "This is you," Lily said proudly, showing a stick figure with dark hair standing between Lily and Michael. The three of them were holding hands under a crooked rainbow. Isabella stared at it, her throat too tight to speak. Lily leaned closer. "You don't have to be alone anymore." Tears blurred Isabella's vision. She reached out, smoothing the child's hair. "Thank you, Lily." When Lily finally padded back to her room, Isabella lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The world she had built, the empire of glass towers and ruthless deals, suddenly seemed fragile compared to a crayon drawing taped to a wall. And though she didn't say it out loud, she made a silent promise. For once, she would stay. 2 days passed before Isabella's old life came crashing back. She had settled into Michael's modest apartment almost without realizing it. She spent mornings at the small kitchen table, sipping coffee while Lily chattered about school projects. Afternoons were filled with errands she had never done for herself: grocery shopping, folding laundry, even helping Lily water her balcony garden. They were simple tasks, yet strangely grounding. For the first time in years, Isabella felt like she was breathing air that wasn't recycled through a boardroom vent. But on the 3rd morning, her phone, long ignored at the bottom of her designer purse, lit up with missed calls. Dozens of them. Richard, board members, advisors, even journalists. When she finally dared to answer, Richard's voice sliced through the line like a blade. "Where the hell are you?" he demanded. "You walked out in the middle of negotiations. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Isabella stood near the apartment window, clutching the phone so tightly her hand shook. Michael was out on the balcony watering plants with Lily, their laughter muffled through the glass. She wanted to stay in that moment forever, but Richard's words dragged her back into the world she had built and hated. "I'm done being your pawn," she said evenly. "You don't get to decide that," Richard snapped. "The company is Grant and Hale. Half of it is mine, and the other half is mine," she cut in. "And I'm taking it back." There was a pause, sharp and dangerous. Then Richard's voice dropped to a hiss. "Walk away now, Isabella, and you'll regret it. You think that washed-up soldier can protect you? He can't. He'll drag you down with him. You belong with us, with power, with influence, not in some filthy apartment playing house." Her stomach churned. Richard had no idea how wrong he was. The filthy apartment he scorned was warmer than any mansion she'd ever lived in. She hung up before he could finish. That evening, Isabella sat on the couch staring at the floor, her phone heavy in her lap. Michael noticed. "You okay?" he asked softly. She hesitated. "My family, they won't let me go easily." Michael leaned against the counter, arms folded. "You don't owe them your life." She looked up, startled by the firmness in his voice. "You saved me that night at the airport," Isabella said quietly. "But this fight, it's bigger than one night." "Then fight it," Michael replied simply. "On your terms, not theirs." It was so matter-of-fact, so steady, that she almost believed she could. A week later, Lily tugged Isabella's hand as they walked through the crowded elementary school gym. Bright posters covered the walls, tables overflowed with clay sculptures, and children darted between displays with sticky fingers and wide smiles. "This way," Lily urged, pulling her toward a corner where her artwork was pinned. A crayon drawing of 3 figures holding hands under a rainbow, the same one she had shown Isabella that night on the couch. "Isn't it great?" Lily asked proudly. Isabella blinked back sudden tears. "It's beautiful, Lily. Who's the lady in the picture?" another child asked, pointing curiously. "That's Isabella," Lily said without hesitation. "She's part of our family now." The words lodged in Isabella's chest. She glanced at Michael, who stood nearby, watching with quiet pride. Their eyes met, and for a moment the noisy gym seemed to fade. But peace never lasted. That evening, as Isabella and Michael walked Lily home from school, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. The tinted window rolled down to reveal Richard's cold smile. "Get in the car, Isabella," he said smoothly, as though nothing had ever happened. "You've had your little adventure. Now it's time to come back where you belong." Michael stepped in front of her instinctively, his body shielding hers. "She's not going anywhere with you," he said firmly. Richard's smirk widened. "You think this is about choice? You have no idea how deep this runs. The contracts, the investors, the media. Isabella doesn't get to walk away. And neither do you, soldier." The threat hung in the air like smoke. Lily squeezed Isabella's hand tightly, her eyes wide with fear. For a split second, Isabella felt her old world and her new one colliding, the empire she had inherited, and the fragile, precious life she was building here. And in that moment, she knew she couldn't have both. Back at the apartment, Isabella paced the floor, her hands trembling. Michael watched her quietly from the doorway. "They'll come after me," she said. "They'll smear my name, drag me through court, bury me in scandal. They'll do anything to keep control." Michael's voice was steady. "Then you fight. Not with their weapons, with yours." She stopped pacing, looking at him. "And what if I lose everything?" Michael crossed the room slowly, his gaze unwavering. "Then you'll still have what matters. People who care about you. People who see you. Not your money, not your company. Just you. Her throat tightened. No one had ever said that to her before. Lily appeared then, holding her sketchbook. She handed Isabella a new drawing, 3 figures again, but this time standing in front of a small house with flowers in the yard. See? Lily said seriously. We're safe here. Isabella sank onto the couch, pulling Lily close, her eyes burning with tears. For the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid to lose an empire. She was only afraid of losing them. The storm broke on a Friday afternoon. For days, Isabella had been torn between 2 worlds, the glittering empire her family insisted she command, and the fragile, precious haven she had found with Michael and Lily. She tried to convince herself she could balance both, but deep down she knew Richard was right about one thing. The two could never coexist. The news broke like wildfire across Chicago. Headlines blared. Grant and Hale in crisis. CEO missing from major negotiations. Shareholders demand answers as family tensions escalate. Where is Isabella Grant? Michael found her staring at the television, her face pale. They won't stop until they drag me back, she whispered. He turned the TV off with a firm hand. Then you show them you're not afraid. You've been fighting their battles on their terms your whole life. Maybe it's time to fight on yours. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. And what if I lose? Michael's gaze softened. Then you'll still have us. You'll still have a life worth living. The confrontation happened in the same place her father had once built his empire, the towering glass skyscraper in downtown Chicago. Isabella hadn't set foot in the building for weeks, but as soon as she entered, the air felt heavy with polished steel and sharp ambition. The boardroom was filled, her stepmother Margaret sitting stiff at the head of the table, Richard lounging smugly in a tailored suit, advisors, lawyers, investors. Well, Richard said with a cold smile, look who decided to grace us with her presence. Isabella sat at the far end of the table, her spine straight. Her injured shoulder still sore, but her gaze unwavering. You've dragged my name through headlines, she said evenly. You've tried to break me with threats and manipulation. But I'm not here to be your pawn anymore. Margaret's lips tightened. Isabella, this is not a game. The company is in chaos. You are responsible. I am responsible, Isabella cut in, her voice sharp. Which is why I'm ending this charade. Effective immediately, I resign as CEO of Grant and Hale. The room erupted. Shouts, gasps, a flurry of voices clashing at once. Richard slammed his hand on the table. You can't just walk away. You'll lose everything. No, Isabella said, standing. I'll lose nothing worth keeping. Richard's face twisted with rage. You think that man will save you? That little brat of his? They'll drag you down into mediocrity. You were born for power. For the first time, Isabella smiled. Not the cold, calculated smile she'd worn in every negotiation, but something real. I wasn't born for power. I was born for more than this. She slid a signed resignation letter across the table, then turned and walked out, leaving Richard sputtering behind her. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual chaos. Isabella stepped onto the crowded sidewalk, her heart pounding with a wild mix of fear and exhilaration. Michael was waiting across the street with Lily, who waved furiously the moment she saw her. Isabella's throat tightened as she crossed to them. It's done, she said, her voice trembling. Michael studied her carefully. And how do you feel? She let out a shaky laugh. Terrified, free, both. Good, he said simply. That means it mattered. Lily slipped her hand into Isabella's. Did you win? Isabella crouched down, looking into those earnest brown eyes. I didn't win their game, Lily. I walked away from it. The child considered this, then nodded. That sounds like winning to me. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Isabella's resignation dominated headlines for weeks. Reporters camped outside the building. Investors panicked. Richard launched a smear campaign, painting her as unstable, reckless, unfit. But Michael's apartment became a fortress of sorts, a place where headlines couldn't reach, where Lily's laughter drowned out the chaos of the outside world. Isabella learned to live small. She burned her own toast, folded laundry badly, watered Lily's sunflowers with clumsy care. Each ordinary act felt like a rebellion against the life she'd once been trapped in. One evening, she found herself on the balcony with Michael, watching the sun sink behind the Chicago skyline. The city glowed gold and crimson, and for once she wasn't thinking about stock prices or mergers. "You gave up everything," Michael said quietly. She shook her head. "I gave up nothing. I finally chose something real." Their eyes met, and in that quiet moment, words weren't needed. Weeks later, the apartment was filled with the smell of pasta and garlic bread as the three of them crowded around the tiny table. Lily was coloring between bites, chattering about a science project. Michael poured water into mismatched glasses. Isabella, once used to crystal stemware and silver cutlery, found herself smiling at the chipped ceramic. After dinner, Lily pulled Isabella toward her room, proudly showing her a new drawing. 3 figures again, but this time under a house with flowers blooming in the yard. Above them, in shaky crayon letters, she had written. Isabella felt her chest tighten. She hugged Lily close, tears prickling her eyes. Later that night, as Lily slept and the city lights flickered outside, Isabella sat on the couch beside Michael. "I used to think love was weakness," she admitted, "that it distracted you from success, but now I see. Love is the only thing that makes success worth anything at all." Michael's hand brushed hers, steady and warm. "Then you've already won more than they ever will." Months later, Isabella's name slowly faded from the headlines. Richard tightened his grip on Grant and Hale, but the company stumbled, riddled with scandals and lawsuits. He had won the empire but lost everything else. Isabella, meanwhile, built something smaller but infinitely stronger. She started a community fund for single parents, using her skills not for profit but for people. She gave lectures at schools about resilience, about finding worth outside of power. And in a modest apartment above a laundromat, she learned the rhythms of ordinary life. Mornings filled with pancakes and crayons, afternoons in Lily's garden, evenings on the balcony, watching the city glow while Michael's steady presence anchored her. She had traded boardrooms for bedtime stories, power for love, and she had never been richer.